Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining me, as always, is Lou,
Hello, everyone.
Karen,
Hello.
and we are talking Darkness Ascending, which is very appropriate because recording on the evening as we normally do Sunday mornings because of my travel schedule. We're doing Sunday night. And Darkness Ascending was originally aired June 3rd, my birthday, on 1998.
Wow.
And you were 6 years old, right?
59 is 69, 79, 89, 99. I was 39. So, yeah.
Wow.
15th episode of season 5. We are slowly getting to the end. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is in the script book, JMS says that anytime they need an emotional episode where there's going to be a lot of emotions in there, they love to have Janet Greek as the director. Okay. She is also one of the directors. He said, I think Mike Vorger is how they say. He is the one that does a lot of the action episodes, and she has done Sky Full of Stars, Signs and Portents, Voice of the Wilderness, Part 1 and 2, Chrysalis, Points of Departure, Coming of Shadows, The Fall of Night. She did No Compromises, A View from the Gallery, and Darkness Ascending, and she has one more episode, The Wheel of Fire. So all those are very strong episodes.
And that's pretty impressive we're talking 1998. How many women directors were there at that time?
Less.
Yeah.
More in TV than in movies.
Yeah, so that you could count them on one hand back in that time.
Science fiction.
Yeah.
In anything on TV.
And Michael Vejar, it is Vejar, did 14
It's not
episodes.
Behar?
Maybe?
Behar.
Yeah. Geometry of Shadows. They're all honor lies. Comes the Inquisitor, which was a really good one. Convictions, Message from Earth, A Late Delivery from Babylon. Ship of Tears, World Without End, World Without End Part 2. And Rumors, Bargain, Lies, No Surrender, No Retreat, Face of the Enemy, Paragon of Animals, Meditations on Abyss. So, yeah, some of the biggies. He's one of the biggies as she is. So Lou,
his last name is Behar.
Behar. Well, very nice.
Be Hispanic.
Yeah, must be.
While working on Babylon 5, he acquired the nickname Veharder for his willingness to put in long hours shooting, which everyone else involved with the show having to say on set along with him.
That I love.
That's cool.
All right, so Karen, while you're going, what did you think of this one?
I liked it. This one was good. I love having Lennier back anytime. The dynamic between Lennier, Delenn, and Sheridan, even though Lennier didn't directly interact with both of them at the same time, really. I feel like there was a lot there, and getting to see his strength of character and all that. So that was good. And then, of course, we got some more Garibaldi. So how could that be bad, right?
Yeah. How about you, Lou?
Yes, for the listeners that jump to the end of the podcast to find out our ratings, I'll give you a TLDL. I really like this episode a lot.
Yeah.
Too long, didn't read.
Too long, didn't listen.
How very nice. Yeah, I also thought this was good. And what reminded me is it is easy to dismiss the 5th season because it is so weird. You've got no Susan, you've got this weird telepath storyline, and then when they've kind of gotten that out of the way, I do feel like it's similar to the 5th season of West Wing, where they lost Aaron Sorkin and they had to figure out how to write again. Not because Aaron wrote everything.
Right.
So I think JMS had to kind of figure again what to do. So let's start with Garibaldi. He gets two Ghost of Christmas Present and Ghost of Christmas Past. No, he do get two beautiful women showing up. You know, his nightmare where he is screwed up everything. And that's definitely, if that's ever his subconscious talking to him about, you need to stop drinking, you need to stop drinking, you need to stop drinking, was very clear. He wakes up and Lita with the weird Vorlon eyes. I've decided not to hide what I can do anymore, but you weren't supposed to wake up, so go back to sleep. This is a dream. And then he wakes up and Elise is there. So for those of you who've been asking, are we going to see Elise again? We do. Lou, as our resident Garibaldi cheerleader, give me your thoughts on this one.
Interesting nightmares. And in a show like this or any science fiction show, you're wondering, are they foreshadowing something for the remainder of the season with either scenario? The second one with Lita seems more interesting to me. If that's what she's in the rest of the episode, we have no indication that that's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
so those two scenarios were interesting. The first one, I guess you could say, is, as you said, it's just a straight subconscious saying, "Dude, you've got a problem here, and you're going to get people hurt if you don't get your act together." So th those two visions were interesting. Um, Again, I'm really curious as to why they're there. I guess maybe they're short circuiting or doing a end run around the fact of him having been getting chewed out by Sheridan, maybe, or something like that. So maybe this is how they're going to approach that. It would kind of bum me out, though, if he has this drinking problem and nobody else is going to find out about it because of the impending conflict potentially with the Centauri. I would think that he would buckle down, and I think that with something that big going on, he would curtail his drinking. Though he did drink on that mission, so maybe I'm talking out of my ass on that one. Do we want to take Garibaldi all
Oh,
the way through, or
let's stick
okay?
with that.
So his scenes with Lise were good, and he had all the symptoms of a alcoholic. Denying that he has a problem and saying that he's a different person now and that he's in control of it, which are all signs of an alcoholic.
The the first step is to admit you
Yeah,
have a problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good, and it was good to see Lee show up. I mean, the guy's married to her. I mean, if I was married to her, I sure as hell would be back on Mars.
Yeah, and I
Like that's kind of a weird story thing they have to do to keep him on Babylon 5. Of course, now with the war, that sort of takes away that overhanging issue. But I like their relationship, and I hope that she's going to call him on it because the scene in the bar or the restaurant when he went and filled up his coffee cup with out of his flask was a signal of future things to come, perhaps. And overall, for this episode, the thing that I really liked about it, and I'll just make this blanket statement, is all the scenes felt real. Some of the characters always we know them, so there was no out of bounds kind of. Okay, I'm going to roll with it because this is the story point that they want to go with. Everybody acted the way I expected them to act, and that was no more true than different than it was with Garibaldi and Lise.
yeah, in fact it almost there was hardly any guest stars on this, right? You were, I mean, the I guess if you
Lise,
count the
but
maitre d' Elise, but yeah,
Montoya
Montoya.
yeah, Montoya, yeah. Yes. Which yeah,
prepared to
which
die.
once again just a great character. All right,
Mm.
how about you, Karen? And I really want I did want to hear you, and then I'll talk some more about the waiter scene. That JMS has always been a non-drinker. If you read his autobiography, his father was an alcoholic and abused his family, and so he countered by not drinking whatsoever, never. And this happened to him, except not putting whiskey in the coffee, where the waiter said, "Okay, coffee for after the meal. What do you want to drink?" And coffee. And like, yeah, I got that. That similar something happened to him, which I think is a little funny because I think nowadays people would just go, okay, coffee, you got it, right?
Yep, yep.
Or do you want anything to drink besides water? I'll often hear servers say it that way. So any thoughts on that and just the whole storyline there altogether?
I like that allegory you made about the ghost of Christmas. We're coming up on Christmas in real life here, so
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. I did appreciate the fact that Lita showed up and mentioned that she was trying to figure out what the Vorlons did to her, trying to come to terms with it, because that's very much a mirror to Garibaldi. You know, his mind was also invaded. And so
Yeah.
I thought maybe that's why he was having that particular part of the vision.
Ooh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And then, the rest of it, the two people he's closest to on the ship probably are what, Sheridan and Zach.
Yeah.
And they're dead. And then someone who he has this addiction in common with is Franklin. And I feel like he is hiding more things from Franklin than anyone else. And for Franklin to be the one that accuses him during that, we needed you. Where were you? That I thought that was very telling as well. So I think he did a really good job with that, making sure that everything aligned up with, what was really happening, that this is what his dream would have been like. Those were the people that would have been there. He knows that the Vorlons messed with Lita's head. One of the things that is assumed is that we use them to either teach or learn things about ourselves, to internalize things, and we use allegory and, kind of a simulacrum kind of thing. And so this was like dead on how people really dream. And I thought that was cool. Then I saw Lise come in and I was like, okay, finally. He married the chick and he hasn't seen her for what, 6 months? Hello, I would have sent divorce papers at that point, right? If he said, I'm coming back soon, I'm coming back soon, I'm coming back soon. And she's stuck on Mars because she has taken over her husband's company. I thought she was pretty sassy. And I know that's a terrible word. I should not use that word.
I love sassy.
And she didn't let him get away with it. She caught him hiding the bottle.
Yeah.
She also said to him, when are you coming back? And, when they were at dinner in that restaurant, which I thought was interesting. It was the same restaurant that they toasted as like the old acquaintance be forgot kind of thing there the first season. I thought that she did a great job, like holding his feet to the fire and saying, well, you promised me you were coming home. I need your help. Why is this not happening? And then at the end of the episode where he just knows he's going to stay on Babylon 5 longer, I thought, okay, this does not portend, it's not great portents for her. It made me feel bad for her because it's like, they just get married and then he runs off and stays away for months and months and months. And just when he's about to be able to come home, he says, nah, well, I can't. So yeah, the whole story was kind of tragic to me. He has this horrible dream. He wakes up to find his wife, who he's happy to see, and then it's just downhill from there, and it was sad.
Yeah, I thought I am not convinced that the Lita is a dream. I think she really was mind-popping minds, right?
Why couldn't she? Yeah.
And he thinks it's a dream though. So
right.
yes.
Either way, whether she's a dream or she's really in his head, then, it's still, to us, it's writing, that's how it was written. So to us, it's that allegory for his brain being invaded by Best.
And I thought that I had not thought of that, but that's a couple of things there, Karen, as always. I love your thoughts, but the idea of Lita's brain was kind of thought that way as well. So that makes a lot more sense of why she would be connected. And the other thing I thought was cool is we talked a little bit this, but I think it really pushed, right? Franklin, if Garibaldi wanted to get sober, Franklin would be someone you could talk to, right?
He'd have to be the one.
Yeah.
Because he understands.
Al-Anon,
when you get a sponsor, it's always someone that's been through the same thing. And I think Franklin would have to be
Yeah.
his sponsor, and I'm putting air quotes around that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
and to have him be the one calling him out in his dream is really,
Yeah.
that is 100% dead on. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And you think Franklin would
go
have
ahead.
some medication too for drinking in those.
Right?
I-
Although, to be fair, that isn't the cure for addiction. I think Franklin wouldn't do that. I
Mhm.
think there would be a benefit to that kind of thing, but I think he would want Garibaldi to kick it naturally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, because he got, that's one of the things that happened to him is he got hooked on drugs. And why
Yes.
would he want to, substitute
Mhm.
one addiction for another?
Yeah. I do think it was when we go back to when he tells Elise at the end, you've got to go. I think at first he's thinking he so doesn't want to, he's so unhappy with me knowing that he's drinking. He's getting me his conscience out of here.
Right.
And then when he says, because we're about to be at war, I think is a twist I didn't see coming. I also think this is going to make Garibaldi feel even more guilty because he did nothing to stop this war. And
Yep.
not that he could have, but because he is someone who has a lot of guilt and lives these things, I think that is going to affect him even more. Well, I'll stay with you, Karen, then I want to hear thoughts too, Lou. What do you think about his excuse to himself and to Elise about why he's drinking?
Yeah, it's self-denial. That's another hallmark of
Yeah,
alcohol addiction, any kind of addiction really, but
yeah,
you always justify things to yourself. When you're addicted to something, there's always a reason why.
yeah,
And there is always a reason, but a lot of it is you're addicted.
yeah,
But in this case, he's saying, well, I couldn't help it. I had to do it. There, he can justify it a million different ways. I think that
Yeah.
would have been cool. But, he can justify it any way he wants. He's still addicted. And I think it's such a realistic story for him that they're giving us all the things that really happen in real life to people
yeah,
who are addicted to something. And I, I do appreciate the fact that and I'm talking about JMS here, he wrote Garibaldi in such a way that not only does it seem natural to have his character do this, but I could see this character in real life.
hmm
So, like, I could see Garibaldi in, say, a police drama who's addicted to something. That's
yeah,
just, I could see him in any situation. And that is telling, that you can actually take someone from a science fiction series and put him into a modern day setting and the character still works. It's good writing, I think.
I think so too. And I thought I wanted to go BS to him, but it was interesting to me, and Lou, I want to hear your thoughts too. This justification of saying, look, I've been messed around a lot. I'm out of control. So you know what? I'm going to take control. And if I'm going to mess myself up, I'm doing it my own way. It is almost like Mantle, all his family died very young. His father died young. And Mickey Mantle used to joke that if he knew he was going to live this long, he would have taken better care of himself.
Right.
And he was a very well-known alcoholic and so the idea that everyone in my family dies young anyway, so I might as well eat, drink, do whatever I need to do because it doesn't matter. I'm going to die in my own way. So, any thoughts on that, Lou?
Well, that's the thing with addictions, right? I mean, even people that don't have addictions, we all make rationalizations about what we do and don't do in any given day.
Yes.
And for somebody with an addiction, the rationalizations just come easier and are easier to believe. And that's the difference between somebody with an addiction and not, is that the person that might put something off one day will do it the next day, as instead of just constantly putting off forever and ever. So I totally got his rationalization for why he was able to control his drinking this time, in air quotes. But
Mhm.
it's, we rationalize lots of our behavior. And if we took a hard look in the mirror, we'd probably say, I just really made up a baloney excuse. So I just didn't feel like doing something, or I was too lazy or whatever. So yeah, it totally made sense to me. And I totally bought into it.
I do think it does not look good for our heroes that one of their key contributors is playing injured and they don't know it.
Yeah.
Michael has already failed them when he went to the Drazi homeworld. You can't count on him. This is not an enjoyable storyline. I'm a big Garibaldi fan as well. I don't like seeing that he has fallen off the wagon, but I do think it makes for drama
Hmm.
that we know the other shoe's going to fall.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a
Yeah.
matter of when,
And is it
right?
gonna make a big, I mean, look at his record over the series.
Yeah,
With the whole thing with the first thing with Sinclair,
Sinclair.
yeah,
they kept him out of the loop on all that crap, right? And then
yeah.
Bester took over his mind, and so he wasn't a lot of help in that situation. So when is he gonna actually contribute something to the cause? I'd
Mhm.
like to see him actually be helpful at some point.
Yeah, and I do think he has done some good things, but you're
Oh, of
right.
course.
I think that's a valid question to ask. And probably that's also thinking about him, he's got that in the back of his mind as well.
Sure. That he
Right.
wasn't there when necessary and not of his own choosing all the time, but he's not good in the
Hmm.
clutch. And I think looking back on some of the stuff that's happened this season, him being all grumbly about Sheridan taking all this praise and all that, some of that could be because he feels inadequate
Yeah.
and that he's jealous of someone who actually did do the right thing and came through in the end and
Hmm.
all that.
Yeah.
So he's just an interesting character.
Yeah. I want to go back to, I don't know if you guys caught this little moment in the restaurant, which by the way, JMS in the script book said since it was the last season, they are trying to do some things kind of as a callback. And I'll talk more about that when we get to Londo. But did you notice him talking about Catherine
Yeah,
disappearing? Did you
yeah,
guys notice
Yep.
that?
Yep.
Any
yeah.
thoughts on?
I wondered why he brought it up,
Okay.
and I'm assuming it's so we know she disappeared.
Yeah.
I loved that they called back to the very first episode in
Hmm.
several instances and then to the first season and others. That
Yeah.
was genius. I love it when it's showing us that there's continuity
Yeah.
throughout the whole series. So that was awesome.
Hmm.
But yeah, I wondered why there was a drop in, and putting him back in the Fresh Air Cafe opens that up for us, right?
Yeah. Hmm. And Luke, did you notice that line and any thoughts on it?
I got to be honest, I don't even remember who Catherine is. So
So,
yeah.
so that was Sinclair's girlfriend that we saw a couple of times that he asked her to marry him.
Okay.
Yeah, the traitor.
Yep.
Yeah,
Said that. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so they
I should
were
have.
the reason why, and there is a book that's probably out of print right now that is To Dream in the City of Sorrows. And it was written by, at the time, JMS's wife. So it is considered, all the books are considered quote unquote canon, though some people to debate. Catherine Sakar, commercial pilot and planetary surveyor, has lost her heart to Jeffrey Sinclair, and not even attacked by the shadows can stop her from getting to Mimbar to join him and the Rangers. And it's the story about her becoming a ranger. The theory is that she somehow ends up going back in time and actually joining Sinclair, and she converts as well, and she's a Mibari, and they
Oh,
live happily ever after.
so
Nice.
she ends up being
Yeah.
the wife of Valen? Is that
Yes. Yes.
okay?
Yeah,
thing,
then
right?
other people say no, Valen was never married. So there is some inconsistency there. But as a fan of To Dream in the City of Sorrows is a link in the Lurker's Guide. And after you finish five, you could probably go back. You probably could read it now just to kind of see. But I kind of like that
Hmm.
they kind of threw that in there. Um, that what was happening. All right, we're going to get to Lennier, our love triangle, but before that, Jakar gets a visit from Lita, and as you talked about, this was a conversation that came all the way back in the first episode
For the
where
pilot, yep.
Narns don't have telepaths,
Hmm.
and he offers Lita a chance he's willing to pay her a lot of money to mingle their DNA. And of course, Jakar, being Jakar, makes a joke about it, about, what
Is
is your
that
pleasure
though a joke?
threshold?
Is that a
Well,
joke?
someone asked him, how would a human and Narn mate anyway? And his answer was, well, as Jakar said in the pilot, there would have to be rather substantial genetic manipulation and adjustment to allow for the different DNA structures to mix. After that, it would require the usual dinner, flowers, being willing to sit through a chick flick.
My answer would be very carefully.
Yes, indeed. All right, Lou, what's your thoughts on Lita because she is so trying to get them their own world. And
Hmm.
she has that discussion with another businessman. He goes,
Yeah.
no, I can't because
The Psychor.
the Psychor wouldn't cover us. Then I'd lose my insurance. So
Yeah.
she goes to Jakar. So let's go through that whole story and take it where you want, Lou.
Yeah, she's trying all the avenues. I guess Jakar was her last hope. I don't know where she would have gone after that if he had turned her down. So she's become the spokesperson for all the telepaths, which is interesting. I don't know if this means that at some point she's going to leave the show, but that I guess is a possibility now. Though the way things are going, it could take quite a while. I'm just wondering where all the other telepaths have gone to in the interim. And I, I have to say that actors should really be happy when they get to work with certain other actors because every time there's somebody who has a scene with Jakar, I think it just elevates that person's performance. And I thought this was one of Lita's better performances, and she really got to top it off with the cherry with saying that her pleasure zones are off the scale or whatever. And Jakar just kind of goes like whistles, silent whistles. So, it's just, really good scene between the two of them. And I thought she's really working hard to get these people home. So she's trying to honor her boyfriend, whose name I've already forgotten. His name,
Byron.
Byron,
Oh, it's yes.
Byron the poet, Lord Byron. I should
Yeah.
remember that. It's really trying to honor his memory of what he was trying to accomplish. So, that felt very true for her character. If you can accept the fact that she had fallen so fastly in love to the depth that she had with Byron. But they never showed us that. That was sort of implied in between the sheets, I guess you could say. You would think that there was that, like, it would have been nice to see them join the minds kind of scene, but we never got that, which is too bad.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
she was pretty good in this episode. I'm curious to see where things go for her character next, which is something quite unusual for me to say about
Yeah.
Lita.
Yeah. One of the things I thought about, I think we've talked about this before, is one of the writers from Buffy for a while did a blog about writing. And she said that if you want to be creative, get two characters that don't normally interact with each other and
Yeah.
give them a chance to interact. JMS did say that he had not put these two together very often since the pilot, and he kind of wanted to do that. He has also other chess moves down the move with this. I thought it was cool to see them together. And also, this is a very different Jakar than it was 4 years ago, right? He is
Yeah.
Hmm.
not the same. Um, I also want Luke to talk about the test that, he comes back and says, yes, but will you be willing to do this? And she says, no, I can't spy. Though someone brought up if she could read minds, she probably read the mind that he said
Right.
that he this was a test, but regardless, it made her look good that she said no. So thoughts on that, Lou?
I'll give that to Karen.
Okay,
So,
Karen.
Did you mean Jane Espenson?
Yes, Jane Espen.
Good.
She is good.
She's a good follow on social media, by the way.
She is. I
She's
agree.
very smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that if you're talking about that elevates this show the most, I would argue it was Andrew Katsoulis. I do feel like anyone who appears in a scene with him has to up their game in order to not disappear next to him. And, you know, Jakar is such a big character. And I'm not talking about in size, I'm talking about everything about him. His personality is brash and overbearing, and even in the way he thinks about things, how he's much more introspective now, even that is a large presence in the room with him. And so I don't dislike Lita ever, really. I mean, there were parts of the series where I thought she wasn't quite as good as she is this season, but I think her meeting with Jakar in both instances, that really, they were highlights for me. And I feel like, why didn't they? Okay, we're more than halfway through this season. Why didn't they start this earlier, this part? Because I think this is a much more interesting telepath storyline than the whole Byron thing. Why didn't they just have this group of telepaths and her agreeing to help them and having to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
Although that's me not knowing what's coming. But I really love this idea that Jakar would help her in this circumstance because they don't have telepaths. And knowing how spiritual he is right now, to have him throw that test at her, you know, will you spy on people for me? And having her say, no, obviously not. I will not do that. And I saw where that was going, to be fair, because I thought he would never ask that of her. And when he did ask her to turn around, I thought, okay, good. Thank goodness, because you could see where she would bristle because of it immediately, because people have asked them to do that over the course of her life, always.
Yeah.
And then they both have a heightened respect for each other in that minute, because she says, okay, good. You're testing me because you don't want someone with low morals. And then he says, well, you wouldn't have done that. You know, so they both have an elevated level of respect for each other at that point. I love them together. I love anyone with Jakar, to be fair. I think he's my favorite character in the whole show. I just love where his character has come from, where it's gone, his motivations, seeing him frustrated, seeing him bantery, seeing, you know, all these things I just love about him. I will say the one nit I had about this episode was the whole sexual connotation thing between him and Lita. I thought, okay, that's a little cringy for me because they're talking about serious things, but it was kind of funny. So, I mean, I'm willing to kind of let that go and not worry about it. But, you know, I did think, okay, he's supposed to be like this really spiritual guy now, and this doesn't make sense because he's an arm, but, you know, he's only human, right? Isn't that what we say about people?
Well,
so, yeah, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, okay, that's cringy. That's weird. But it is a direct callback to the pilot. He does proposition her in the pilot. So I like that they really did take that whole conversation and transplant it to now. And it was refreshing to see this brought back. It never happens. I mean, it's very often a show with an arc, it does a callback, but it doesn't do like this direct callback to a conversation that we can, you know, equate with each other.
Yeah, I think so too. It was really nice. All right, so let's move on.
Lou didn't go yet.
Oh, yeah.
I think Karen covered it off okay.
Good deal. Yeah, thank you. You're always. All right, we've got John has found out that, you know, Delenn has been withholding something from him, and he is really angry. And one of my favorite scenes is her just cutting the legs out from under him, and then him being mad that he can't
Okay,
be mad.
my favorite line of the
Okay.
entire episode. I have been working up a good mat all day, and I'm not about to let you undercut it by agreeing with me.
Yes.
It was so good. It's very Scarecrow and Mrs. King, which again, you guys know I'm a huge fan
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. And he talked about, once again, JMS in the script book said that that is something else that happened in real life. He was dating someone and he was really angry, and just he had nothing to do with his anger after she went, "Yeah, you're right." And
I actually do that a lot. I own up to my mistakes. And
yeah,
when I know I've done something wrong, I do that to
yeah,
Sean, and he hates it so much.
yes.
He really does.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. And
yeah. And he said, when they have the argument, he says it's good to remember that she is a religious caste and she makes Jesuits look like intellectual softies,
yep,
right? That because of this. So I don't quite understand why he's so upset, though they kind of talk about it, right? It's just one behind his back that she argues with the Rangers. But anyway, they do send Lennier on the mission. They think he dies. And I think it was interesting how she kept the faith. He's not dead.
yep.
He's not dead. So,
Again, religious cast.
exactly. He does get the proof from the Centauris. He figures this out. I like the callback to the test where you're going to have to be, there's only a limited amount of space, to air, and they do that callback. Also think that ship looks like it would be really uncomfortable to be
Right?
laying prone,
Yeah,
and
it's like
having to
being on
keep
a
your hands up.
RAI tube or something
Yeah,
Yeah, and you would think it's like watching TV laying,
on your
flat
stomach.
on your stomach
Yeah,
watching TV. Like, wouldn't your neck get
yeah.
right.
uncomfortable? But maybe
You'd think.
Membari's neck
Well,
works
Anatomy.
a
they
different
they
way. Yeah.
sleep on a flat board, so
Yeah.
maybe they're just different.
All right, Lou, wherever you want on this storyline, take it away.
Okay, I just do want to comment again on the Sinclair, the Sheridan Delenn conversation because, like I said, everything rung true, and I think all of us as spouses have gone into an argument and thought we were had the higher ground, only to have the knees cut out from underneath us. So
Yes.
that felt really, really true, and I could totally empathize how with Sheridan's frustration in that scene. So
Yes, I can too.
I really liked that quite a bit. Sheridan being mad at the Lynn, I think there's a bit of jealousy there too. I don't think he wants her interacting without him chaperoning the two of them to a certain degree.
Knowing about it at
Yeah,
least. Yeah.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah, I do think he does have a little bit of jealousy
yeah,
because of their closeness. Not that he
yes,
doesn't trust her, it's just
yeah.
he doesn't understand it, right?
Just
Yep.
territorial,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. So yeah, as to the Lennier adventure story, it was one of the most plausible ones that Babylon 5's done, I think, within a self-contained episode, with him doing all the things that he did, and it nicely built on the meditation thing from the previous episode. Got to see Montoya again, which was always good. I had to kind of wonder though when he docked with the other ship and he was taking some oxygen from them, that wouldn't have the other ship noticed that they had a loss of oxygen, but I guess maybe it was small enough that that was not detected. But I did like that whole leaching aspect of that part of the adventure.
Here,
Go ahead.
JMS was asked, wouldn't the Centauri have noticed air escaping?
Right.
And his answer was the amount of oxygen taken would have been very minimal, given
Right.
the size of Lennier's ship, little more than coffin size.
That's
The hole would have been self-sealed by the Minbari fighter, which is designed to do this sort of thing in order to sneak past enemy lines.
right.
So
So
The pressure would have been the
you
same.
nailed it.
yeah, and he thought that out. So that was good. And then the Lanier jumping with the ship to their attack, that was really tough to watch for him. And, we have children and blah, blah, blah. That moved him. And that was a nice moment for that character to have that. I gotta say though that I still don't know how they think it's the Centauri. I mean, I know the Centauri ship, but they still don't have any solid proof that they're manned by Centauris, unless if there's something in the communications data that he gathered that would prove that. I still don't think the Centauri are in those ships. That still seems like everybody's jumping the gun a little bit on that conclusion, at least to me. I don't know how you two guys feel about it, but I thought that was probably the only part of the storyline that I was kind of going, I'm not too sure about that. But, you know, bigger conflicts have started on lesser misunderstood things. So I guess it's
Mhm.
something that will probably be explored in the next couple of episodes.
Karen, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's Centauri in there, and I don't think that it's.
I think it's the
I, I
the
don't.
neck
Well, I
neck
think
guys.
they're on the neck, so I think they're forcing the Centauri to do this.
So then that means it's not the Centauri.
Right, right. But I mean, the life signs on board the ship would have been Centauri life signs.
Did they have that many of those mind control things? I thought they would use those very judiciously. But
But I mean, would they follow the command structure if, that they just got out of war and that so we know that they're not litigious, but you know what I mean.
They are egotistical and they
Right,
do think,
better than everybody else's.
right.
yes, they
So
do.
if these creatures are only on, say, the command structure of the ship, wouldn't everyone else just go along with it?
If the one's on
Of these,
the Emperor's giving the commands, that's all they need, right?
exactly. But
Oh,
I
it's only,
would put a few on the ship if
but
they want to
they're
make
kind
sure
of
that,
not easy to hide. Like if somebody saw their
right,
captain with a thing on their neck, you'd say, "Oh, dude."
right. I do think that it's plausible enough for me. And it is fast. This is part of my complaint about this season. This should have been the main storyline, and I would have loved to have fleshed that out a little bit more ahead of time. But I think it's enough information, even if I'm not quite sure they would jump to this conclusion right away. It's enough for me because I do find that storyline very interesting.
Mhm.
I enjoy seeing that story move forward more. So
Right.
I'm willing to justify
Yeah. Yeah.
those things. So
The other point I forgot to bring up too is it's an interesting exploration of Lennier's relationship with Delenn in that he was gambling with his life. Like he was willing to die to try to do this for her. And he was hoping that he was right, but he really was taking a huge gamble here. And he was just lucky that it paid off. But nobody knows that except him. Though I think if they review what he did, I think they would kind of look at him like Sheridan and Delenn, especially, would look at him and say, that was a really courageous but damn stupid thing to do.
journey though,
I don't know if that's going to be explored or not, but he took a risk solely based on his feelings for Delenn.
yeah. And I want to say that nothing good can come from looking over your husband or wife's shoulder while they're on the computer.
Yeah.
Nothing good can come of that.
Yeah, it did seem like John was relieved for her that Lennier had not died, and I think for him too. I don't think he
Sure.
wishes anything bad.
Mhm.
Well,
Um,
he made that clear that I care about Lennier.
yeah,
He did actually, when they had their little talk about the whole thing, I care about Lennier and not just because he's special to you. So I
yeah,
didn't want to put him in harm's way. And I do feel like all around there was a lot of relief that he was okay.
yeah, I think so too. What are your thoughts on that? We have Londo now all of a sudden, he's being slowly blocked off, right? And he talks about that, wait a minute, even during the middle of war, business happens. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts on that?
Who? Karen? Me?
No,
Yeah,
you.
okay, let's do you first.
Okay, well, it was good setup at the beginning of the episode that the mundane sort of meetings were being dropped, and then the other shoe drops at the end of the episode that he's not even being invited to the council meeting.
Hmm.
That God, Londo would have been probably quicker to or be more persistent in finding out why everybody was canceling their meetings than rather waiting until this other big shoe dropped. I don't think he would have let that happen. He's pretty savvy. We've seen that in previous seasons and episodes. So I think that was, again, it's one episode. It all happened in the same episode, so you can kind of argue, okay, it happened pretty fast, but
Yeah.
it just seemed like a bit of an oversight for his character not to be up to speed on the possibility of that happening. I like the storyline, but it just seems so weird that they're making the Centauri the bad guys again. I kind of would have liked to seen something else, and maybe I will still, but right
Right?
now it's kind of like the Centauri again, really.
Yeah, I do like that he is upset about all this because it's kind of deserved. He's not the best guy ever, and it's easy for them to say, well, we got to keep him out of the meetings. He hasn't really proved himself to be the paragon of virtue in war and all that. So I don't know why he's so shocked that they would be excluding him from these talks. I love when he and Veer have scenes together. I think Veer was really good at communicating that things were being dropped and, stressing to him, yes, everything's dropped.
Hmm.
and having Londo be puzzled by it and say, we'll find out why. And Veer's almost, I felt like he should have said, that's not my job anymore, dude. I like when they interact with each other. I think it must have hurt to see that even Jakar was invited to these meetings and he wasn't. Because somewhere in the back of his mind, he still has a prejudice against Narn. You know that.
Yeah.
And it has to hurt his pride and his feelings and all that stuff. But again, I mean, I thought of Lou immediately. I'm like, Lou's got to be kind of happy that he's upset by all this, right? Because he kind of deserves it. And, to see him getting a little bit of that back, it made me happy, but also, a little sad. I like its characters. I'm hoping he becomes the catalyst to informing people that it's not really the Centauri. I'm hoping, but
Yeah.
again, I don't
I'm
know.
I questioned the approach that the council's taking here too. Shouldn't Sheridan and Delenn approach Londo and the Centauris first and say, this is the evidence that we have, and we're going to bring this to the rest of the council's attention unless you can prove to us that it's incorrect. That
Right.
seems to me it would have been the more judicious
But
approach to this.
again, they've been bitten in the ass by the Centauri before. So maybe they're just more willing to buy into the fact they're at it again.
That's possible, but
Yeah.
you have to,
Again,
as a
it's
good leader has to put aside their
right.
prejudices. And I don't think that this is the right approach that they're taking, giving it to the council and not including or not letting the Centauri know. I mean,
Yeah.
because if they know ahead of time, I don't see what harm that's going to be. I mean, it's not like the Centauri are going to go walking around to all the other races in the alliance say, "Hey, we're accused of this war crimes." They're not going to say anything. They're still going to have the council meeting. So I don't think they're doing it the right way, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting debate, and
I mean, it's valid.
I think it's a very valid concern that um how good is Sheridan at what he does, right? Is he the best
Not
political leader,
not the
right?
best.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I think he was the first person to admit that.
But the thing is, even like in a trial, the defense has to, or the prosecutors have to present all their evidence to the defense before the trial starts. And I just
Yeah.
think that this is the way these kind of things should be handled.
We did get calls from the Centauri, telling
Yeah.
Londo that they had struck the set for the casino. And it's a pretty massive set. And he said that the people that would be in charge of sets would have got, you want to do what? Because it would have been a lot more. And but I assume, I guess, the fresh air is not that big of a set to reset up.
Sure.
Maybe that's why, but I guess the casino would have been.
Assuming they could just redress any of the like bars or whatever
Yeah.
to be the fresh air cafe, right? Move
Yeah.
stuff
Mhm.
around, use different chairs,
Yeah.
and there's vines all over the place. So it's
Right.
hiding the
Even the
structure.
casino, they could use a stock shot from a previous season and just keep the camera tightly focused on one corner or something like that.
Yeah,
You're
that
muted,
might be
Jesse.
funny though.
Yes, that was
Be an
it.
in joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything else that I've missed talking about in our notes? I do think it's interesting that we're we're going to have, they are setting it up that there's another war, which is very realistic that, you know, um we don't talk about the time between pieces as this show has talked about
Right.
before, right? So we're doing that. I can't think of any other storylines. Anything I missed? Anything you guys want to bring up, Karen?
Poignant bit where near the end of the episode, Delenn is out in the hallway and she gives Londo a huge hug and says, I might
Yes.
not be able to do that again.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really touching because it shows the character of those two characters. She already knows that the Centauri are most likely behind all these things. And for her to embrace him that way, it says a lot about her. And I liked that story beat because it's a lot of meaning in that tiny little story beat.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
There was also a nice story beat with Dave coming up to Sheridan and Delenn, and I'm pretty sure he was going to say that he was going to leave and go home with his wife. Then Sheridan says, I need you now more than ever. So I thought that was another nice little moment.
Yeah.
Put them in the same room. I thought maybe they were the same person.
And you wonder, what's going to be that gets Garibaldi back on the wagon, right? What is it going to happen? I know that when I was watching this, I was like, okay, is pressure a good thing on an alcoholic to try to, you're going to go two ways, right? You can either it drives you to more drink, or is it enough that you've hit rock bottom and you need to make some changes
up and get yourself straight. I would hope he does that, but I'm guessing he doesn't. I'm guessing we're going to see some more drinking from him. That, we've already seen that when pressure hits him, he's most tempted, and he's already drinking again.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling we haven't seen rock bottom for him yet.
Yeah. So it's going to be, we've got a lot still going on. So I can't wait to finish the ride with you guys. All right, Lou, for those of you who did skip ahead, we'll make a note, skip to here. What's your rating for this one?
No, we don't want them to skip ahead, right?
No, we don't.
Nice.
Oh, by the way, that actor who plays the Maître D was in Chopping Mall, which is, I think, by far one of my favorite horror movies, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
I watched it growing up, I guess as a teen, Chopping Mall, and I thought this is the most hilarious horror movie I've ever seen. So I just thought that was cool. He plays the janitor in that. Okay, so I'm gonna give it, what did you give it, Lou?
8.5.
8.5.
Yeah, that's where I'm headed, I think. 8.5. Really good Mads.
Okay. I am gonna make it a triple. 8.5 out of 10 beautiful redheads
nice.
on the edge of your bed. So we are pretty close.
Good.
To this. I believe we got one email.
We did. Yes.
Hey, Texas.
Texas says this episode is kind of a calm before the storm, seeing what characters are up to right before everything goes to hell. Garibaldi is having nightmares, but then wakes up to something most guys would be absolutely delighted to find, a beautiful redhead sitting at the end of the bed. Except her eyes are glowing, which puts this right back in nightmare territory. And then he wakes up again just in time for the actual girl of his dreams to come walking in and give him a proper wake up. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, let's go back to bed then.
Yes, it did.
It doesn't take Lise too long to find out he's off the wagon again, and she is not happy. She's been there when he's been doing this before and doesn't want to see him go through this again. She gets him to commit to abstaining while she's there, but makes the mistake of expecting him to hold to that. Londo is finding things are getting strange. All his appointments have been canceled. No one seems to be taking care of the day-to-day business, and most ominously of all, he gets word from Centauri Prime that elements within the Alliance might be preparing to blame the Centauri for the attacks. Through it all, he just seems like he's out of step. That scene in the Zocalo in particular, after Veer leaves, he just looks like a lost child.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. A lot of him, I feel like, is childlike.
Yeah.
Whereas, Jakar has grown up. Londo still lives in that kind of, playing with his daddy's toys kind of thing. So, I mean, that's a fantastic analogy. I do like the line about how he's no longer interested in gambling anymore. Could you imagine him in season 1 saying that? Of course, over the last 5 years, he's made some of the biggest gambles of all time with his homeworld on the line. After that, gambling for money would seem rather mundane. Exactly. Lita, yeah, exactly. Homeworld telepath arranges to meet with Jakar to take him up on his offer from the Gathering. She'll supply him with the genetic material from her telepath in return for a considerable payment and several starships. He agrees to it, but he makes one last demand that they scan and report back on the thoughts of the other ambassadors from time to time. Lita refuses on that part, but that was the answer Jakar was looking for, and he approves the deal. Have a very, very good day. I just love Jakar's reaction after he leaves. The main thrust of the episode, however, is Lennier's efforts to find proof that says that the Centauri are behind the shipping attacks. Sheridan gets wind of it and recalls him immediately, but Lennier, being Lennier, goes out on his own and does what Delenn told him to do. He gets the proof they need, but nearly dies in the process. Thank you.
I love that line so much.
Yeah. So it's not Chekhov's gun.
Yep, it's Chekhov's skill deep meditation. Yep.
Okay. So now we stand on the verge of a new crisis. Sheridan and Delenn are obligated to disclose what they know, but the Alliance members will no doubt want blood. How will this fall out? Will the Alliance get their justice? Or will the Centauri dismiss it as enough unfounded assumptions to wrap around the station 3 times and still have room for a knot? All righty, so that's our hint.
Yes.
Okay, so are we getting more insight into what Jakar likes in bed? Are we talking about BDSM? Is that where we're going?
We'll see. Okay. Thank you, Texas. As always, we appreciate it.
Great.
Lou,
feedback.
Did we get any feedback on the YouTube page?
We did, and this would be for the previous episode, Meditations on the Abyss. And FSM Dog said, "Welcome to the friend zone where you suffer in more ways than one." Amen, brother. Amen. And this one from Texas is pretty sobering. It just occurs to me, of all the people at the dinner scene at the end, Bruce is the only one left, and that includes Jerry Doyle.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's pretty sobering.
It's sad.
Yeah.
And then Nathan writes, "I'm of the mind that Delenn is naive and doesn't know that Lennier is hopelessly in love. She thinks it's maybe a temporary crush or doesn't think that there's anything special. And Lennier took himself out of the equation with sibling childlike jealousy." Yeah, we've talked about this over the course of his first appearance in this season. And I think Delenn knows, but she's just using him, to be honest, in my opinion.
She's doing what we talked about through this whole episode.
Yeah,
things and yeah, exactly.
She's
I do think that she's deluding.
I think she knows too. I agree. And I do think you're right, Karen. She's deluding herself that she isn't knowingly manipulating him because, oh, well, he loves me and I can get him to do anything. I just think that in her mind, she almost takes it for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just bring up, since you mentioned Texas's comment that everybody but Bruce is gone? Yeah. I saw a little clip of MASH, and I know MASH is divisive, but less people are dead from MASH than from Babylon 5.
MASH is divisive.
No, some people don't like MASH, believe it or
Oh.
not.
I find that hard to believe because MASH was earlier than Babylon 5, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's my point.
That's
It's an
crazy.
ensemble cast as well, but only a handful of them are gone. And they went a long time ago, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, it is. I know when you guys get to watch the direct to video, the direct to DVD that came out just last year, right? That was one of the things that Stravinsky asked the remaining cast, if you guys think this is disrespectful, then we'll pass.
Right.
And they all said no. I think it's not disrespectful to have other people voice the characters.
Right. I
Yeah.
think they would have wanted their characters to live on, right?
Yeah, and it is, when you look at it, the amount of people they've lost, it is very, very high.
It's very sad.
Any other feedback there, Lou?
That's it.
Okay.
I wouldn't have interrupted if there was still more feedback.
Okay. All
I
right.
wouldn't do much on here, I know.
No, never, never. All right. Yeah, I'm looking, right, that when you think about it, Mira Furin, Mike O'Hara, Jeff Conway, Stephen Furst, Richard Biggs, Jerry Dole, Andreas Kazaklis, Tim Cholney.
Yeah.
Who played
even like Johnny Ocavella.
Yeah.
Did you talk about Sinclair?
Yes.
That he's also gone. And they all seem to have gone relatively quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it isn't just that's of the main cast.
Right.
I mean, these are people that were actually in there. So yeah.
Right. And look at the main cast on MASH. We still have Alan Alda. We still have BJ. We still have Loretta Swit. We still have Radar. We still have Klinger.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the main cast still alive. And it's earlier than this by 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's just really brings home how many people that we lost from Babylon 5 and how sad it is.
All right. If someone wants to give you feedback, Lou, or reach out to you, how can they?
They can do that at YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find our flagship podcast. Of course, this one, the Babylon 5 podcast. We also have our sister flagship podcast, I guess you could say, the JKL Media Podcast. We're up to 20 installments now, covering off one-offs of miniseries, movies, books, comics. We're just about finishing off Bly Manor, but we've done such diverse things as Midnight Mass, Devs, Station 11, The English, Identity Crisis, Dark Matter, The Tragically Hip, a Canadian band for you people who might not know, 12 Monkeys, V for Vendetta, The Quester Tapes, that's an oldie goldie, The Peripheral, Little Steve, Disciple, 12 Angry Men, Stagecoach, and the aforementioned Hunting of Bly Manor. So there's a wide range of stuff in there, and I would love to find a way to get those episodes more prominence or visibility for people to listen to them, because it's harder to get people to listen to things that are not of series and that.
Yeah.
But we like talking about them, and if you come along for their journey, I'm sure that you'll find them quite interesting. And beyond that, I do my writers interview podcast as well as the Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma, Sytsama, and on Blue Sky with the same handle.
All right.
By the way, I was watching a compilation of things, and The Tragically Hip was part of it. And I'm like, I know who they are. You can reach me. I'm at Oliveria on most social media sites. I also have a blog, alleystuff.com, where you can find a bunch of links. And you can email us, as Texas On the Shock did, at jklb5podcast@gmail.com.
Super. Well, I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter and aka X Blue Sky. Please follow me. You can still hear me talking about music, though I don't know. I may be only doing one episode of Set Listing Bruce a week for December, just because after doing 30 days of episodes,
you are burnt out.
I have tons of episodes already recorded. Just haven't felt like editing them. So I get that. Yeah, please let us know. We are winding down Babylon 5 and we would love, love, love feedback on what you guys think we should cover next, because we are going to keep talking, because this is always one of the highlights of my week.
Yeah, we're not stopping anymore.
Nope.
Yeah, nope. All right. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, listeners. Be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Scene.
Scene.
All
You
right.
forgot to say it.
No,
And
I
scene.
didn't. I was just waiting for quiet.
Oh,
And scene.
Ed.
Okay,
keep
there
that
we
whole
go.
thing in.
There we go.